And a good spiritual morning to you once again. I'm Father Cosmas.
And I'm Presbytera
And
Michelle.
thanks for joining us today for a quick chat. And of course, our morning cup of coffee.
Good morning, everybody. We hope that you're having a good day.
And today we're going to be talking about, well, it's the beheading of St. John the Baptist. Obviously, we're not making this video on the beheading of St. John the Baptist on August 29th. But every year on this day, it's a strict fast day. And we remember the beheading, this terrible story of the beheading of St. John, one of the saddest, most tragic parts of the gospel, because, of course, St. John the Baptist, this amazing figure connecting the Old Testament to the New Testament. He's the last of the prophets. Kind of in a sense, he's the first martyr, but not really, because we say St. Stephen is the first martyr. But living this angelic life, he's a messenger, preparing the way, this amazing person.
And we want to get to know him. And
and then
Herod
there's
comes along.
this tragic end. So I mean, the story is what? You want to tell the story? You want me to tell the story?
You tell the story. You're better at getting to the point.
Quick recap of the story. Obviously, we remember what happens is Herod, who's the king of Antipas, he's the king. And for whatever reason, even though he's married, he decides he wants to be with his brother Philip's wife, Herodias. So he basically takes her for his own wife, which obviously isn't appropriate. And St. John calls him out on that, says it's not appropriate. You can't just sort of say, I want to be married to my brother's wife and take her as your own wife. And so Herod throws him in jail and leaves him there because he knows he's a holy man. He's afraid of the crowd. He respects John, likes listening to him. And but of course, Herodias is not happy about this. The wife is not so happy about this. So they're having a big party. She convinces her daughter, Salome, to dance for the king and please the king. And he gives his word that if she does this, he'll give her anything that she wants, up to half of his kingdom. And so she dances, she pleases him. And then the mother, Herodias, says to the daughter, ask him for the head of St. John the Baptist.
Yeah, because he's making her look bad.
Yeah, on a platter. So she does. And then it says the king is, of course, sorry. I think the gospel uses the word sorry. But because he's given his oath, he's given his word, and because he's worried about his guests, he says okay, and he has him beheaded in prison, presents the head of St. John on the platter and to Salome, and she presents it to her mother. So this horrifying story of how this amazing prophet, prophetic figure, and angelic figure that Christ himself testifies about, being the greatest among men, right?
Yeah,
of those born of men, none is greater than St. John.
That's incredible.
That's how he. So what's kind of our take home?
So what hits you the most?
Well, I asked you that first. You.
I think that he has no backbone. I mean, he's a king and he can do whatever he wants, and yet he's afraid to change his mind when we talk. You know, you could do anything you want. You're the king.
Right. It's good to be the king.
Yeah, but you don't want your wife to be giving you daggers, right?
That old Mel Brooks line. It's good to be the king. It's good. I mean, yeah, literally, he's worried about his guests. Like, he can just cut off any of their heads if he wants.
Or don't invite them back.
Right. So he should just say, yeah, I know I said so, but guess what? I changed my mind. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I didn't know my daughter was going to ask for that. I thought she was going to ask for a palace or something.
Stepdaughter.
I'm sorry, stepdaughter.
Yeah. We clarify that.
That's
because,
true.
Of course, we don't know what dancing and pleasing him means. I don't want to.
Rated PG, please.
Yeah, let's not get into that. Let's keep it G. Yeah. We might have gone PG-13 on that one. But no, just this idea that, right, I'm the king. So if you don't like it, too bad. What are they going to say? He's worried about, I think that's what I always think about. He's worried about his appearance. He's worried about how people are going to see him more than doing what's right, because he knows it's wrong.
And it's not a little thing. It's not like, it's a little, I'm going to take somebody's life.
Right. And it's kind of like, what are these parties like that this is what you're doing at the party? All of a sudden there's dancing, and I'm sure there's drinking, God knows what else.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's a presentation of a head on a platter. These are some pretty interesting parties.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that I could just say no because I know, because here's the thing, he would have killed him already. There's a reason he's keeping him in prison and not killing him.
Which is what? Because he respects him?
He likes listening to him. He's afraid of the crowd, but he knows deep down this is a holy person and he doesn't want to kill him. So the idea that he knows it's wrong, but now I'm going to do it anyway because I'm worried about what people are going to think. That, I think, is a big thing for us to think about in our day-to-day life.
And this isn't a parable. This is a historical story, obviously. Right. It's not like we're trying to learn a lesson from a parable. No. We're talking about something that we can relate to because we too, we don't want to look bad in front of other people.
Right. And we want to keep up appearances. We want to look good. And so, but sometimes we do things maybe we shouldn't do, just for that sake, for sort of saying, I want to, and we want to kind of keep up with the people around us. There's always this sort of pressure. I mean, I think it's interesting. It's like he's feeling peer pressure in a sense. This king in first century Israel is feeling peer pressure,
crowd pressure.
I mean, a king, and so it's like a king feels peer pressure. He has no peers. Like, he's the king. He can do whatever he wants.
Oh, that's a good point.
But for us, we feel like, as parents, we feel that with our kids. Like, gosh, are we doing everything that the parents around us are doing? Like
keeping up with the Joneses?
Yeah, kind of. Mm-hmm. Like, they're, I see my children's friends, they get phones when they're like 4 years old. Should I be getting my kid a phone at 4 years old? Like, I don't think that's right, but I feel pressure, to do that.
I mean, even women feel pressure. Am I wearing the right thing? Am I driving the right car? Do I have the right phone? Do my nails look the right? I mean, we have really brought it down to some silly things that we're worried about.
Right. And I think we do that all the time because we're constantly feeling that sort of, well, I'm giving my oath in a sense, but we're not giving our word to do anything, but we feel eyes on us.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like he doesn't think that, I mean, so what's going to happen? Are any of those people going to say, well, wait a minute, great king, you gave your word. Like, who's going to say
you're not king anymore?
Who's going to say that? I mean, he's going to chop off their head on the spot. So it's not like they're really going to say anything. He's worried about the perception. That's what I think. And I think we worry about the way that people perceive us too in different instances, not just keeping up with the Joneses, but it also might be, well, if I do that, am I the in the life of the church or in our spiritual life, no one wants to be the holy roller. No one wants to be holier than thou. Yeah, if I go someplace and I know I'm supposed to be fasting, am I gonna I don't want them to think this way of me or that, even though we know the right thing to do, we might not do it. We might not talk about it because we're worried about the perception. And I think we shouldn't care about that.
We got to work on that then, because we all do it.
Yeah, we shouldn't be scandalizing people. We shouldn't be hurting people, but we also shouldn't be saying, well, that's more important than me doing what I know is right. And that's ultimately the most important thing for us in our spiritual life. And so, I mean, that's what I always think about when I think about, this horrible feast of St. John the Baptist. A strict fast day for that reason. It's a sad day. It's a day where we're all saddened by that happening. But I think the reality of it is for us to sort of recognize, right, in our spiritual life, okay, it's a day for me to be reminded, because what's the take home? As I'm celebrating the feast, what do I think about? I think we think about perception and appearances. And, I don't care what people think, really. Ultimately, I care what God thinks, first and foremost. And I'm going to do what God wants me to do and put God first.
Is that too, I mean, I'm not going to try to give Herod credit, but that he had a second thought of, I feel, what does it say? He was saddened, or he felt bad.
Sorry.
So you have that minute, and maybe we need to listen to those, because we all have those too, right? We have those moments of, well, right or left. If I'm doubting it, then.
Right, I think so. I think we start going down that path, and then we're like, wait a minute, I know I shouldn't do that. We have that moment, I think, where our guardian angel is tapping us on the shoulder. It's like,
grab it.
Yeah, hey, moron, you're not supposed to do that. Like, there's, they don't say that, but the little tap on the shoulder, we sort of call it our conscience. The spiritual elders say, no, that's your guardian angel. Yeah. Sort of tapping you on the shoulder and say, you're not supposed to do that. Don't do that. Like, stop.
Listen.
And we feel bad. And then it's like, but then we do it anyway. And sort of stay in that moment a little bit longer, make that moment last a little bit longer, and then hopefully try to pull out of that moment and make a better decision and say, well, so I don't care what people think. So they think of me that way. Am I doing what's right, or am I doing what I know is wrong because that's what I'm worried about, people's perceptions? Yeah. And in the spiritual life, we have peer pressure all the time. In the life of the church, who's coming to church, who's not coming to church, who's coming on time.
In our own families.
Yeah, what are they wearing? Are they taking communion? Mm-hmm. Did they get ready to take communion? You see them the week before. Hey, we were hanging out on Wednesday or Friday. We were at a barbecue on Sunday. I see you taking communion.
Don't go there.
And you're like, oh, well, wait a minute. So it's like there's this whole thing of this peer pressure and this perception. But we need to sort of say God first. And let's put God first and not worry about the perceptions. Don't give in to sort of the spiritual peer pressure. Basically, I think is my message, and say put God first, and then of course everybody else got to come second to that. So I think that's something we can think about as we're celebrating the feast day. Remember, today we don't cut anything. No cutting of watermelons. No cutting. This is the old sort of Horyol, the old village tradition, because of the beheading, you don't cut any melon,
watermelon cantaloupe,
right? You don't cut anything round because we're thinking about the beheading and remembering that all day long. But also remember today and this week, don't give in to peer pressure. Don't give in to bad influence. Put Christ first, and do that each and every day.
Amen.